How's everybody doing? Today's day 9 of our husband's boot camp. Baruch Hashem, we're getting a lot of very, very good feedback, and I'm very proud of the work that everybody's doing. Today, day 9, we are in the middle of Rabbi Miller's 10 Commandments of Marriage. And today the lesson is never say the word get. Never say the word divorce. Never use that. That's a bad word, should never ever be used. You know, our rabbis tell us, Chaim v'mavet biyad halashon. Life and death are in the hands of the tongue. The tongue is a powerful weapon. It can build or it can destroy. We've all seen that in our lifetimes. We've seen people who have been inspired by somebody else's mouth. We've seen people who have been destroyed by somebody else's mouth. And in marriage, words count. Words are so powerful and words are important. God created the world with words. You get married with words. You say the words, Hareat mikudeshet li, you are my wife. If you don't say those words, there is no marriage. I mean, you have to give the ring as well, and that's the main component to it. But you got to actually say the magic words. Words are important, and the words we say are important. So Rabbi Miller says a person should never, ever, ever say the word get. Never say the word divorce. Now, there's a lot of other words you should never say in a marriage. We'll get to those in different times, but let's concentrate on this idea. You know, the divorce rate recently has gone down, but since the 1800s, the divorce rate has gone up so many times. It's been doubling almost in every century, to where originally it was zero point 0.3 people in 1,000 were getting divorced. In the height, in the 1990s, it was 4 people in every 1,000 people were getting divorced. I just said somebody sent me a wonderful article from the Daily Wire where 18% of people growing up in this country are growing up in a household with a married couple. Only 18%. That means 82% of people are growing up in a house that do not have people that are married. The divorce rate is out of control. And part of the reason why there is so little marriages and so high of a divorce rate is because divorce became a real option. Originally back then it was a taboo thing. Nobody got divorced. I mean, I'm talking about, in the early days. Then when people started to get divorced, it almost became an option. And now it becomes an option, becomes the easy way out. I can't tell you how many times I speak to people who are divorced. They're miserable. You know, on average, married people who have bad marriages are happier than divorced people. So here's a guy who's married, he's miserable with his wife. He says, no, I'm going to get divorced, I'm going to marry a better girl, and everything will be great. And the guy's divorced 5 years, and he's suffering, alone with nothing. Barely sees his kids, sometimes yes, sometimes no. And here's a lady who can't handle a husband. She forces her husband, divorce me, I'll get another husband. And now she's living nowhere. She has no money. She has 3 kids and she can't handle them. Oh, good. Look what she got. Never use the word get. That's not an option. We are committed in marriage. We're committed for the long haul. Once we say those words, now all of a sudden the marriage doesn't become something that we're here in for the long haul. When you just by using the word get, you just created a situation where that's an option. And once you create it being an option, it's always on the table. That is never an option in a Jewish home. Now, the Torah talks about get. That's, that's when everything has been exhausted. But it's not something that should be openly on the table. For instance, here's a couple. They're married, struggling. They go and they decide, you know what we're going to do? We're going to discuss getting divorced. Now they go to a therapist, and the therapist says, listen, I can fix your marriage, but it's going to be hard. And they both look at each other, and inside each other, they're thinking, well, do I actually want to push? Do I actually want to force this? Or maybe I should just take the easy way out of divorce. That's already now, that's on a scale now. That's a question. Maybe yeah, maybe no. Once we get that off the table, you have no choice. Your back is against the wall. If I want to be happy, I have to make this work. And therefore, the word get should never, ever be used again. A lot of words in marriage shouldn't be used. We'll get to that later. But the word get or divorce should never be used. The word separation should never be used. And as we said before, a person should always keep the routine of marriage. You should never talk about withholding the routine. You should never say, yeah, well, I'm not giving you money if this happens. Well, I'm not, I pay for tuition, and I'm not going to pay the kids' tuition if you don't do this for the children. Never talk in a threatening mode of withholding something or putting something back or not keeping the routine of marriage. And in this way, once we put it in our heads that this is a long-term thing, there is no options the other way, we automatically are forced to work on it, and it makes it a better situation. So I wish everybody continued luck and success. How's everybody doing? Day 9 task. So our lesson of the day was never say the word get. Never discuss divorce as an option. And our task is going to be in that vein. However, we're going to flip it. We're going to make it a positive thing. We're going to have a discussion with our wife about what life is going to look like in 20 years. A fun, easy, non-serious, random conversation. Go over to your wife and ask her, can you imagine 20 years from now, our kids are going to be married, or in 20 years from now, we'll sell the house and we'll get an apartment in Florida. And your wife will probably look at you and roll her eyes and say, yeah, yeah, honey, you keep dreaming. But what you just did is you planted a seed in your head and in her head, a vision of what's going to be in your commitment. You crystallized in a positive way how things are going to end up in 20 years from now. 20 years from now, our grandson David's going to be married. Could you imagine walking down the aisle for David's wedding? Wow, that'll be phenomenal. Wow. Something like that automatically puts a positive spin on everything. So I know this one couple married 25 years, fought every day. Terrible. They married off, probably married longer than 25. What am I thinking? They were married 35, 40 years. They married off their last kid, their son, and he married a girl from a divorced home. Getting up to the wedding was an absolute pill. They were fighting the entire time. Finally, before the wedding, there was a whole question if the girl's father was going to show up because he was afraid of this and he was upset at this and he paid for this, and her mother was saying she paid for this and she did this. They're divorced. After the entire wedding, 1 o'clock in the morning, the husband and wife of the boy's side, they were the married couple, married for, 35, 40 years, fought every day. As they were getting into the house from the wedding, they looked at themselves and they said, could you imagine that? We could have been that other couple. Both of them today were miserable. Both of them today were uncomfortable at the wedding of their child. Both of them, instead of being happy, were angry the entire time. And we could have been that, but we stuck it out. I want a vision, a positive vision of what things are going to look like in 20 years from now. Have a fun discussion with your wife randomly. Imagine 20 years from now, what's going to happen? We're going to walk down this one and have that discussion. Quick, easy, fun, but it crystallizes your commitment in a positive way.